Well, I want to turn now to Quebec, where the Liberals swept through the province. This is where we saw last night the story starting to take shape. The party has picked up more than 40 of the 78 seats that are up for grabs in that province. The latest number as of this morning is 43. This, of course, if you look at that next number, comes primarily at the expense of the Bloc. So let's bring in the Globe and Mail's Conrad Yakubuski. He is joining us from Montreal this morning. Conrad, first of all, what was the reasoning, from where you're sitting, what is the reasoning that people took their votes and instead of walking them to the Bloc, they took them to the Liberals?
Well, again, the factor in Quebec was Donald Trump, much more than even in the rest of the country, and perhaps even more than in Ontario. When you look at the results, I mean, the Quebec results did come in line with what we were expecting. Had it not been for those 9 seat gains by the Liberals in Quebec, they'd be even farther from a majority government. So that did make a big difference. And the Liberals picked up almost all of those seats in the suburbs around Montreal. They also won Trois-Rivières, which was a rarity, and they won it quite comfortably. They also picked up Beauport-Limoilou in the Quebec City area, which it had been a Bloc seat. The Conservatives had a strong, well-known candidate, ended up coming in second, but the Liberals ended up winning it. So that was a very big surprise because Quebec City is a very strong region for the Conservatives, the only strong Conservative region in Quebec, in the province. So, the Bloc is weaker in the suburbs around Montreal, and that is the same area where the Parti Québécois needs to win big next year if it's going to form a government.
Yeah, so tell us how that forms that story, what we're seeing in Quebec right now.
Yeah, well, the provincial Liberals are not as strong as the federal Liberals in Quebec right now. They're in a leadership race, and we'll have a new leader in June for the provincial Liberals. But it does suggest that the Quebecers voted strongly in this election to give a mandate to the Canadian government to negotiate with Mr. Trump. And it really does indicate that Quebecers put a large value in political stability, and I think that is going to be a big factor going into the provincial election next year. If we are still in a situation where Canada is in negotiations with the U.S. with its trade relationship, regarding its trade relationship, I'm not sure Quebecers are going to want to be thrust into even more political uncertainty with the Parti Québécois government that wants to hold a referendum on sovereignty. So I think Parti Québécois are going to be a lot of discussion in the next few weeks as to whether they carry through with this plan to promise a referendum in the next election campaign or after the next election, or if they put that whole idea on hold.
When we look at this government and how it sits right now and forming partnerships, what kind of conversations will the Bloc be having with the Liberals, with Mark Carney?
Well, they are going to use that leverage to the maximum. I mean, but
what does that look like?
Well, it looks like getting some concrete legislative commitment from the Liberals not to use supply management as a negotiating chip with Donald Trump. They want that off the table. They want more power for Quebec in immigration over temporary immigration. They want more power over the nomination of federal judges in Quebec. And they've pushed very hard for higher seniors benefits. Now, what happened in this election is the Bloc stronghold had been voters 55 and over, because that is the generation that remains most committed to sovereignty in Quebec. And what you saw in this election, people over 55 went in droves to the Liberals in Quebec. And according to the polls, the pre-election polls, and that appears to have been how they voted. So the Bloc is going to want to try to win back a lot of those voters, and it's going to have a very pro-seniors platform. But those 23 seats are going to, could be very strategically used.
We're going to have that conversation with our panel that's standing by. Conrad Yakubuski with the Globe and Mail. Thanks so much for joining us and your analysis and for watching well into the night for us. Thanks so much. If you like that video, make sure to subscribe to the Your Morning YouTube feed, where you can find all kinds of new content posted every weekday morning.